Hey Paranormies, it's Jen and I'm here today with Sarah, and this video is a collaboration with Witchy Glass Co., which is Sarah's stained glass shop, and she has a multitude of amazing stained glass items that you can purchase on her website. She also has Instagram and Facebook. I'm going to link everything down below, and I'm going to give you a little preview of what her shop offers. Today, she is going to be showing me how to make a stained glass witch hat. So after we get everything organized and we set up and start making it, I am going to let you guys watch while I do a little voiceover with some spooky Halloween stories for you guys. Quickly before we get started, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the spooky fun content that we put out daily during the 31 days of Halloween and twice a week all year round. And sorry if it's a little bit echoey, we are in a large shop right now, but most of this video will be voiceover and spooky stories. So let's do this. Yeah. I'm excited. So this is the design that we're making. This is one that Sarah's already done. It's green and it is for sale in her shop right now. So this is the design that we're going to be making. Today I'm going to be reading you the creepypasta, The Door That Leads to Nowhere. When people come across something unexplainable, they try to find rational reasoning behind it. I mean, it's only natural, right? Well, sometimes things are better left unexplained, and I learned that the hard way. It was a cool Thursday afternoon. I had just got off work, and I wanted to take a stroll to clear my head. I find it therapeutic. Temperatures weren't too cold, but it was cool enough that you'd want to wear a thin jacket. Typical fall weather. As I walked, I felt the wind breeze through my hair as it whistled in my ear. I usually only walk through my small neighborhood on the sidewalk, but I saw a rather large wooded area. I decided to walk into it, thinking that a change of scenery would be nice. As I wandered into the woods, I heard the crunching of leaves beneath my feet. The farther I walked into the woods, the more trees I began seeing around me. I told myself that it'd probably be best if I didn't stroll too far, so I wouldn't have a hard time finding my way back. As I continued walking at a steady pace, I noticed a small dirt trail. Not thinking too much about it, I followed it. It led me to a cove of some sort, which enough trees surrounded it that it formed a pretty big circle. The dirt trail ended and there was no path ahead, just a circle with surrounding trees. The ground was covered with a ton of leaves, but one thing in particular caught my attention. A door. A door in the middle of the forest cove. It was possibly the strangest thing that I had ever seen. My curiosity caused me to walk up to it. It was no bigger than your average house door. It had a dark brown color to it, and it was very clearly made out of wood. The door was old, but still stood sturdy and strong. I put my hand on the door, and it felt rough, and had a wooded exterior. It had a door frame around it, so that if you could open it like any other door. I looked down at the doorknob. To no surprise, the doorknob was just as old and ruined as the rest of the door, but still sturdy. I reached down and grabbed the knob. It was black and metal. The knob was cold due to the cool fall air. I tried turning the knob, but to no avail. It felt like the door was locked. I tried twisting and turning a few more times, but again, the door did not open. I walked to the other side of the door and tried the knob one more time. I was met with the same results. Something inside of me wanted to open this door no matter what. I tried kicking the door, and it was surprisingly way sturdier than I thought. It felt as if it was bolted to the ground. I looked down at the ground around the door, and after kicking the leaves away, I came to a discovery. The door frame went inside of the ground. The door must have been here for quite a while, because the ground around it showed no signs of any digging or tampering. I messed with the door for a long period of time, trying different ways to get it open. All of my attempts ended in failure. After failing, I realized that it was getting quite late and I decided to head home. At my house, I made a small dinner and turned on the TV. After flipping through multiple channels, one channel caught my eye. The news channel. Hey, why not? I thought. I kept it on the news channel and started eating. They had been reporting on a murder that happened recently. Apparently the victim was a 24-year-old man, blonde hair, and was in a wheelchair. He had been shot in the head by people that were robbing a store nearby. Gruesome stuff, I said to myself. I finished up my dinner and brushed my teeth and went to bed. The next day was like any other weekday. I went to work at a small town retail store. It wasn't your ideal job, but it worked. You put food on the table and to pay the bills, and that's all I really needed. After working a long and tiresome shift, I clocked out and went on another walk. I found myself walking toward that same forest I went to yesterday, but somehow I didn't realize it. Eventually I ended up at the entrance to the woods. I took a deep breath, and I entered. Seeking out the dirt trail was quite a challenge since I didn't remember where it exactly was. After a short period of time, I finally found it, and I followed that trail and reached that strange cove. What I saw before me was the worn-out wooden door. I ran up to it and I immediately tried the doorknob. It was still locked. I was frustrated because I really wanted this door to open. It was almost a need for me. I began pacing back and forth in front of the door, thinking of the many ways that I could get it open. As I continued the pacing, I noticed a slight elevation on the ground in front of the door. I looked down and kicked the leaves out of the way. What was revealed was a very dirtied welcome mat. I hadn't noticed that before. What was read on the mat was, "Lift me." I picked up the mat, and under was several dead bugs. I instantly threw the mat down and took a big step back. What the hell? I looked down and saw a key in the middle of all the disgusting creatures. It was broken into 2 pieces. I picked them up and I inspected them. The pieces were rusted. There was no way that I could glue the 2 together. I took the end of the key and put it into the lock on the door, but it wasn't long enough. I had to have the whole key. I looked up and saw the sun setting and the sky getting dark, and I stuffed the broken key into my pocket and turned back to head home. Today was Saturday. I had weekends off, so I had the whole day free. I made up my mind to find a way to get this key fixed somehow. And there was an old antique shop in town, and they would fix old things that were broken if you brought it in, and I decided to try my luck with that. I parked right in front of the shop. It was a small store that was right in between 2 other stores. I exited my vehicle and went into the shop. I looked around and saw a variety of items around me, everything ranging from house decor, musical instruments, paintings, and mirrors. I looked forward to find an old man sitting at the counter. He seemed really old and had that grumpy look. He had a messy white beard, and a few hairs he had on his head were white as well. He was reading the newspaper, so he didn't really notice me at first. "Excuse me, sir," I waved at him. He looked up at me. I looked into his eyes. His left eye was cloudy, and his right eye was blue. I wonder if you could get this fixed for me?" For some odd reason, I was intimidated by this old man. I showed him the broken key. "You want me to fix a key for you?" His voice was deep and raspy. His teeth were yellow and rotten. Some were even missing. Yeah, please," I answered. He held his hand out, and his hand was withered, very wrinkly, almost like a skeleton's hand. I dropped the key pieces into his hand. "It'll be a while," he spoke. "No problem." The old man grabbed his cane and slowly walked to the door that led to the back of the building. I waited around the store for what seemed like a half an hour. The old man came out, and I walked up to him. He reached out with the key in his hand, and I took it. The key was whole again, and though it still felt a bit rough, it seemed like it would work. I paid him for his work. "May I ask you what you're doing with an old broken key like that?" I looked at him. "I just found this old house, and I hope that this key would work. I'm curious to see what's inside," I answered him. The old man smirked and said, "Curiosity killed the cat." He then laughed with his rotten mouth. I nervously giggled. I thanked him, and I sprinted out of the store to my car. I got in, and I drove to the forest. I arrived back at the spot where the door was. I walked up to it, faced it, and I tried the doorknob just to see if anyone else may have gotten it open. My curiosity was soon answered with the locked door. "Figures," I said to myself. I looked down at the lock and took the key out of my pocket. I slowly inserted the key into the lock and turned. The lock slot turned with the key. I put my hand on the doorknob and twisted it, and this time it twisted all the way. I then pushed the door forward, and it opened. I could hear the creaking noise as it slowly opened. What I saw was just the other side of the door. Nothing special happened. I stepped through the door frame and closed the door behind me. I looked around. The air began getting colder. The wind was whistling louder. Fog began appearing around me. What was happening? I didn't understand. Then I saw something, or someone rather. What crept out of the fog was a man in a wheelchair. "Excuse me." "Who are you? What's going on?" I asked. I was met with a silence as this man came closer and closer to me. The closer he got, the better I could see him. He had blonde hair. His face was covered in red. There was a hole in the middle of his head.
It occurred to me that what I had been looking at was a dead man, the same man that I saw on the news the other day. "Let us out," he choked out. Frozen in fear, all I could do was stand still as he came even closer. I slowly started walking backwards towards the door. I tripped over something as I was walking back, and I fell to the ground, and as soon as I saw what was beneath me, it was a dead body. A mangled corpse. You could only tell it was a body because the head was still intact. The head turned slowly towards me. You could free us," the head spoke. At this point, I got up on my feet as quickly as I could, and I ran towards the door. It seemed as if the door had gotten further away from me than it was before. I sprinted while screaming, "Ah, help, someone help!" The fog had cleared up a bit, and as I ran, I looked around and saw more dead people. Some were hanging from nooses in the trees, and some were on the ground, bloodied. Some were even walking towards me, while the others, who still had legs to walk with. But there's one thing that they all had in common. They seemed to all be speaking, and I couldn't hear what the ones furthest from me were saying, but the ones closer were whispering something along the lines of, "Let me out, you can't leave, and stay with us." The ones who weren't saying anything were crying and screaming. All I could hear around me were those whispers and screams. I reached the door, and I fumbled the key out of my pocket, and the dead people were getting closer to me. I was shaking so much that I dropped the key into the leaves of the ground. I reached down and I rapidly brushed away the leaves so I could get the key. I grabbed the key, inserted it into the lock. I quickly twisted and pushed the door open. I ran through the door and slammed it shut behind me. Breathing very heavily, I noticed the air become warmer and the fog vanished completely. I ran away from the door and started yelling, "Help! Someone help, please!" All I did was yell. I ran further from the forest cove, and I ran into a police officer with a flashlight in hand. There was so much going on, I didn't even notice how dark it had gotten. "Whoa, calm down. What's wrong?" the concerned officer asked me. I was panting. "Please, you have to come with me. There's dead people," I yelled frantically. "Listen, calm down. I'm here because I've been getting calls about screaming going on in this forest. Was that all you?" No. Just me. There's people that need help. You gotta come help them." I pleaded desperately. "All right, bring me to them. I'll get help right away." I led the officer back to the cove, but what I stumbled upon shocked me. The door wasn't there. It had completely vanished. "What am I looking for?" the officer asked me. "Wait, it's not here." "Why, it was just here," I yelled. "What was?" The officer looked at me very confused. I looked down and sighed. "Nothing. It must have been my imagination." I was defeated. "Are you sure you're all right?" the officer asked me while pointing to his head. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm not crazy." "Well, I'm gonna stick around and look for a bit just to make sure. You head home, all right? Get some sleep." "Yeah, I'll do that." I walked out of the cove and made my way out of the forest. Every day since then, all I could think about was that incident. What was that? Was it just a dream? I knew none of my questions would ever be answered. No one would ever believe me either. If I tried telling anybody, they'd definitely think I'm crazy. The door may have disappeared, but the key remained. Why? Don't ask me, I don't have a clue. I can't bring myself to get rid of it either. I always keep it on me. Maybe I'll stumble upon that door again, and curiosity will kill me one more time.
Looks awesome. Very cool. Yeah. So thank you for watching. If you made it to the very end, we really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to boop that like button. It helps us out a whole lot. We really do appreciate it. And make sure that you check out Sarah's stuff. Everything is linked down below, and she has lots of really amazing things in her shop, so you have to go over there and check it out. And until tomorrow, keep on creeping on. Bye!